Hello and welcome into episode number 26 of Offensively Accurate. We have some stuff to go through today. Normally I don't stream on Sundays, but today I decided might as well go ahead. I'm still trying to pump out as much content as possible, so I'm grinding as hard as I possibly can. Few things caught my attention. Obviously this weekend had a few things that were just kind of wild with the LP and getting the news that Tim Pool is going to have a one-on-one with Trump, but I believe I saw it was with Kash Patel. Very exciting stuff. I'm curious to see what that Tim Pool interview was with Donald Trump, just based on how it was with RFK. And RFK had some kind of odd stances. He was on with Luke Rudkowski and Tim Pool. And one thing that really struck me odd, and we'll get to one of the part where they talked about JFK, but one of the things that really struck me odd about this was when they went to the Indigenous Peoples Day, where RFK was just unwilling to talk about Indigenous Peoples Day and like a cultural war kind of light, entirely unwilling. And what's crazy about that is just before they have that discussion, they're talking about how he wants to pin, the school shootings and such on like social media, or there's other things involved. It's not just the guns, but it's culture. And so to me, RFK just comes off extremely disingenuous. I don't understand how anybody could vote for this guy. And the biggest thing too is like, we have 3 presidential candidates, but only one of them can like literally speak normally, like in a single sentence. RFK, I feel bad for him. I truly do, because I know there's probably very little he can do about what his situation. But I'm telling you what, I cannot stand trying to understand and parse his words past the croaking and the sounds he's making. It's very, very uncomfortable. So, moving on though, what in the World collab is on. So again, What in the World is another content creator here. He's gotten way more subscribers than I do. He's sitting around like 13.7 thousand, I think, 13.7 thousand. Yeah, something like that. Way bigger content creator than me, at least currently. And we have a goal to do a show this Saturday. And so this would be the first news I'm kind of putting towards it actually being finalized. We were on a call last night. We discussed a few different things, such as topic ideas, how long for the show. So it's to be decided, but we are planning on Saturday. It's just the time on Saturday is to be decided. So look for that. I'll probably speak on it a bit more as the week goes on. I will be building an outline for that too. Not sure how long we'll go. He mentioned an hour, so it may be a bit shorter than the normal Offensively Accurate is ran. Still no Donnie. Say a prayer for the brother again. I hope he's doing all right still. I know he's dealing with personal issues. I tried to contact him again a couple of days ago. I still haven't gotten a response. I'm not sure if he's doing well, but if you would, I encourage you, please say a prayer for that brother. I'm not sure, what really he's going through right now. Again, Donnie is my original co-host who was here for the majority of the first 20 episodes. And he's a really good friend. We've talked quite a bit about a bunch of different political stuff, and he's helped me kind of iron sharpens iron in that same thought process. And for have him kind of just drop out of nowhere, I have one less really good person to bounce ideas off of. And so I really hope to bring him back into the fray. Subscribe on YouTube, follow me on X, follow me on TikTok, follow on Spotify, share the show if you enjoy it. But here's just a short list of what I have to go through for today outside of the Lauren Southern and the quartering. Stu Peters has a powerful statement on voting. We're going to go to the RFK little clip with him and Tim Pool on JFK. We have a warning tweet about MrBeast and a tweet that's going viral about some of the things that I believe it's a father, finds uncomfortable about MrBeast. We have Tucker giving a really strong take on dual citizenship with Patrick Bet-David. There's a few clips I gathered together that are a bit funny too, to kind of break the serious nature. We have Trump vowing to pardon Ross Ulbricht over Assange. I don't know if it really was over Assange, but the fact that it was like people, are holding free Ross signs kind of shows the environment inside the Libertarian Party. There is a huge sect of them that are simply just like druggy libertarians who just want the freedom to do as many drugs as possible without the government telling them what they can and can't put in their bodies. So not my kind of crowd, but I do respect that they fight for liberty. Epstein's Calendar was released by the Wall Street Journal. I have a little clip with Jesse Waters, which I've not seen at all, so I'll be reacting that in real time. And then we have Hilary Clinton possibly entering the race late. At least that's what Michael Malice believes. So that's just a start. We're going to start knocking these out. I'm not sure how long this is going to end up going. It could end up being a little bit longer than normal, or who knows, maybe we bang them out really quickly. The one thing I did want to make a note of too before I get too far into this is you probably noticed like there's a missing chat feature now, except it's not. I upgraded everything. I wanted to make it super proliferated. So let me just show you real quick. If I just do let me just see. Let me just do hey, what's up? And so you're gonna see the way that the chat forms now. It'll be there at the bottom. It'll look a lot more clean. It'll take a lot less screen space away. It's going to be less obtuse. I have a different program I'm using for the chat now to make things look a lot better. So hopefully that kind of improves the quality of the stream. And one thing you probably noticed at the very beginning was a little ticker. I think it's what they call them. So I just added like a very simple feature. So if I just do something simple, like I switch to just like the basic watch screen, right? And then I come back to me, it'll throw that nice little reminder up there because I am terrible with the calls to action, like absolutely terrible. So hopefully that will make it a bit better for me to reminder for me and for the audience to at least, help engage. And if you do like the content, because it helps me out a lot. It helps me be more discoverable and helps me reach more impressions. And so everything that helps me move forward in what I like to do or would like to do. So starting off though, we're going to go straight to the Lawrence Southern beef because they just kept quoting each other. I mean, they just kept quoting each other after quoting each other. And I'm someone who's very tuned into the culture war stuff. I enjoy talking a lot about when it comes to the battle of the sexes between the genders, because I feel like it's one of the most important discussions and conversations going on right now. I find it very, very, irresponsible to worry about, the outer shell, but then not care about what's happening to the interior. This is kind of like RFK's argument was that he cares more about the shell and he cares more about, essentially like economic and national policy things, and he doesn't care about the culture war stuff. But for me, it's like, man, I feel like the culture war really, really kind of, provides a lot of the symptoms that we have to clean up in politics. So why don't we, take a step back and why don't we do some real hardcore, like actual cultural, like digging, and then move all the notice and the attention there. That way we can like not have a rotting inside, because I don't think the more you care about what the nation's doing overseas, but you stop caring about what's happening, with, just family courts, basically, in the average day, everyday layman, I think you've lost the plot. I think that's what matters more. If it's a government for the people, by the people, then it would make sense, right, to give more of your effort to what happens to the most basic institution of all governance, which is the family, and care less about what the government's doing at the top. So to get this started, I do have a bookmarked, or at least one of them I did bookmark. And let me swing it over here real quick. So this was, or the wrong one. So this is the first quote tweet from Lauren. Now the quartering here, this is the one that set her off. So he says, Furiosa, and they're talking about this Mad Max movie, which I've not seen and I didn't even know even existed, but apparently it's got Chris Hemsworth in it. I did watch the first one. I enjoyed the first one. I had Tom Hardy in it. But the quartering says Furiosa was the worst performing film from Memorial Day weekend in 30 years. It needs over 500 million just to break even after marketing, which that's insane, dude. Some of these movies just have these ridiculous budgets. And I can't imagine just like even being like in charge of something like that, let alone I don't even want to. But despite great reviews, it made just $31 million and barely beat a Garfield movie nobody knew about. And then he ends it with, people are sick of female protagonists. So I'm not even too familiar with this movie. But if I go to the picture here, let me see if I can, okay, yeah, you can see it pretty well. Apparently, right above me, that is supposed to be the protagonist. How Mad Max, the saga moved over to a woman being in charge of it, I have no idea. Again, I'm not somebody who's like too entirely like up with the lore. But I agree with the quartering here, right? Like one of the reasons that I really can't stand a lot of movies is the feminization, right? But the end value of feminization, right, would be just simply putting a woman in the place of where a man would normally be, such as majority of the lead roles, right? And art, her life imitates art, and so we see a lot of these features happening now because it seems like there's a lot of feminization going on with men in society. But to make the point more known, there's even movies where even if the male character or the character who is in the lead of the movie is male, I'm still going to not want to watch it if they're making the male be, a cuck, or they're humiliating him all the time with the way he acts as wife, or they're portraying him as some kind of, Neanderthalic kind of figure where he just, they can't do basic things. And then like, everybody laughs when like they, his wife yells at him to go take out the trash. Things like that I can't buy into, especially for a couple of reasons. One, my dad early on in my life just pointed these things out. So it became very, very, very easy. Once somebody points something out to you, you begin to notice the trends so much more. It's one of those like those bias things. And I will be frank, like I'm extremely biased against all of this feminization. Like I cannot stand feminism. But to make that point more known, it's like, so even if there's a woman there, it's like, I'm like, okay, I don't even care. It's like if you take Batman and you're like, now we're going to talk about Batwoman. I'm not interested. I love superhero movies. And even if it was a well-written movie about Batwoman, I could care less because I don't find anything relatable with that. I'm kind of odd with it too, because when it comes to doing simple things like music, and I've told my wife this as well, like I struggle even listening to music that's from women, even if she's just talking about something platonic that's not like a gendered topic of discussion or emotionality. I simply cannot find myself or make myself relate to the words that are being said because I just hear a woman. Now, some people will say like, oh, that's misogynistic, whatever. And that's just my preference. Like, I just don't like it. I don't care for it. And it's totally okay for me to do that. And in fact, I would imagine the most natural position for a man to have would be that he doesn't listen to female singing and that he listens to male singing, because generally the gender that you are is going to be much more relatable in terms of what their album, their iconography or their albums will be, what their music is about, their works, their catalogs, etc., etc. So we move on though. We get to the second part, right? So clearly Lauren Southern gets triggered about this. So what did she get triggered about? The portion that she gets triggered about is no one is sick of female protagonists. She says they're sick of poorly written movies. I highly, highly disagree. I think maybe possibly that there are women out there who aren't sick of female protagonists, that maybe they just don't like all the extra woke stuff, but they definitely enjoy having a boss girl still there, as long as it's not too woke, right? And that's the point. This is the point of like, this is the same girl who's like, I'm not feminist, I'm not, and it's just like, you don't even realize how feminist you are when you take these positions. But to think that, their average guy isn't sick of female protagonists just shows how far from, or how unrooted in reality these kind of positions are. Like, to say that no one is sick of female protagonists, like, are you kidding me? To even sit there and say like the majority of the ire is that these movies are poorly written. It's like, no, dude, I would wager a bunch that these guys are just tired of like women replacing the roles of what the male should normally be doing. And this is even separate from the whole race aspect, right? Like, especially when it comes to race, like people obviously have their issues with replacing historical figures who are known to be white with figures who are black. It's just like, this is ridiculous. And it feels, it's a slight, right? Because it's like, why would you not want to portray the person as they were? Like, what is this? Are you trying to erase history? Are you trying to just like pull the wool over people's eyes? You're trying to like take away from, and it just, I'm not one to get too irritated about the race stuff, because, I'm a fan of a movie such as like I Am Legend. I Am Legend, I think, is a great movie. I don't really have a problem with the fact that Will Smith is the main character in it and he's in the middle of New York. That makes sense. It would be an issue though if instead of, saving his dog, the whole movie was about how he tried to like, he wanted to save his transgender daughter, and he saves like, he saves the hormones or the testosterone instead of saving the cure. Then people would be like, I hate this movie. This is ridiculous. A lot of it does come from the fact that it's so unrealistic. Like, I know that was one of the big issues when it came to the Rings of Power, right? So one of the popular scenes in the Rings of Power with Galadriel had a moment where she takes on like 5 guys in a tiny 10 square foot space, and she's just tossing them around. And it's kind of just egregious because you're like, there's no way, dude. Even if you understand the lore, it's like she's not taking on 4 elven soldiers like this. And people made fun of it as well too. But there's plenty of these instances, right? Like there's instances of movies I can't even name because I don't really watch much of Hollywood's kind of content anymore, that has like girls like ice skating and like shooting like all these crazy things with hand-eye coordination that it would be nearly impossible for even a male to do. And it takes people out of it, right? Like even if you're trying to be somewhat kind of sarcastic or some tongue in cheek with how you know, bombastic some of these moments can be with a woman just do it like pulling something off. It's like it's the saturation of it that people really can't stand. And it's not because it's all poor writing, it's because generally the majority of the time it's coming from a plugged in female who is either not as good as acting or they have a clear agenda and biased way they're presenting the material. And you can see that with things like Star Wars and stuff as well. You even have some of the directors coming out and saying like, we're going to make this movie to make men uncomfortable. It's like, it's clear that these are being made at the cost of normal heterosexual straight men. You know, not even adding race in there. I mean, there is a race aspect, but the majority of the conflict comes from between the genders, between making men want to be like women and simps, and then making women want to be like masculine men. It's all perverse, and it becomes this kind of sick song and dance. Now, to move on from this is not the only one, right? So if we go to, here we go, this is a better one. I think it's, see how they just keep quoting each other? It's crazy. Okay. So then the quartering actually quotes this, what she said, no one is sick of the female protagonist. And he says, they're sick of poorly written movies. But he says the box office strongly agrees with him. I think he would be correct. I think it actually shows, especially when you see, I mean, what that Mad Max that was just on screen, the Furioso, it needed $500 million just to break even. It only made 31 million. And I would be curious who in the world is left with that empty tag, right? Like who owes all that money to all the actors and all the casting and staffing and everything else that goes into the production. Like I would not want to be left with that, you know, holding that bag. That just is like too much of a risk, especially when you know you're doing something. I can't imagine half these people, after doing it year after year after year after year, with fail after fail after fail after fail, those people who are like the behind the scenes workers feel that confident in what they're doing. And maybe that's what's happening, is maybe the people who are better at doing these things do everything in their power to not be involved in the movies that they know they're going to fail. Because I would imagine even a staffer or a small time writer can have a good gauge, at least someone who maybe is a bit experienced, to understand what works and what doesn't work. So maybe that's why we see not the doubling down, but the cyclical loop of a problem, because those who don't get it keep doing it, and somehow they just keep getting money funded to them, and they just keep pushing it. And clearly for a reason, right? And it's unfortunate that it has to be this way, but it is. And so they just go back and forth, like, and so she quotes Sam again. So saying Barbie, featuring a female protagonist, was the highest top grossing film of the last year and 14th of all time. She says the box office does not agree with you. And so she takes probably the only movie that I can think of that has had a that's, you know, done more than just break open, but did well in the box office, that does have a female role. I can't speak too much to this because I haven't seen, forgive me, I haven't seen Barbie. But I do know that there's, even from just reading on X and seeing like the peripheral conversations around this movie, there were a lot of people who pinned Ken as being the reason why they watched it. And then again, so that even, you know, throws a rock in the spoke of the wheel here, but it's clear that she is entirely biased, right? And to use something that was so attacked and was so controversial to prove her point, I think isn't winning her or doing her any favors, especially when she tries to keep doing this this facade that she is this entirely conservative woman, but nonstop is like, go boss girl, I'm a boss girl. And it's just like, at a certain point, I would hope that these people, like the quartering, just stop playing dumb and begin to call you out on just how, you know, subversive you are to the movement you say that you're a part of. The quartering goes back at her saying, I know you're on their feminist arc, and I hate to go all Reddit on you, but actually, Ken was the protagonist. And like I just said, and I didn't even think that this is one of his responses, but I believe that a lot of people do pin Ken as the protagonist. And I think the reason that they did so well was because there was a surge of people who actually watched the movie a bit later after it was released, because they had seen that was actually not that bad, and that there was some kind of like ironic narrative involved with what was going on with Kens and the battle of the Kens. And again, this is somebody who's not seen the movie. So again, I can only speak from the opinions in the nature of the conversation that surrounded it. But this was my belief too. I thought that I saw the majority of the reason why it did well was because it was beginning a resurgence about a couple weeks after it had been released, because Ken was making all the rounds on TikTok and all these crazy edits that he's being based and the way he was talking to the girls. And so it was one of those, like, by trying to do the opposite, they ironically made something good that men would enjoy. And so that ended up being the product with Barbie. So again, they're going back and forth, and it's what's insane is, so he calls her a feminist, and now here comes the paragraphs, dude. Here come the paragraphs, because again, no one likes being called a feminist, but they'll do everything in their power to push feminist ideals. It's kind of insane. I don't like how subversive it is, especially from Lauren Southern and Sydney Watson. They're two of the worst that do this. But Lauren Southern goes, "You stated no one wants to see movies with female protagonists, and the box office agrees with you. I pointed out the top grossing film of the last year had a female protagonist. So what you're saying probably isn't true." Well, that doesn't sound too confident right there. "And it's more likely people just want to see movies with good writing." I mean, well, that's like a vague way to say it, right? Like, people want to see movies with good writing. Yes, that just means see movies without wokeness. You could just switch that and it would be the same exact sentence. But what would wokeness be, right? That would include the female protagonist. That would include not, putting men in these positions that are unnatural, or downplaying or humiliating them, or putting them in some position that can be seen as just like denigrating what men are, right? Like, that would be considered against this. But she goes on, "A lot of movies have had trash writing. And yes, wokeness has some responsibility for it. Like, some, it's just like, what are you talking about here? Some, it's like you're talking to somebody who's not been in politics for a couple years, but she's in politics every single day and it's her career. I can't believe you're this ignorant." But she goes on, "A movie featuring a woman does not make it woke though. See Alien and Kill Bill." So she mentions two movies which I believe are from like the before 2000. Like, I know Alien is I think Alien is in that range, right? Let's just look this up for a second. Alien release date, 1979. June 22nd, 1979. Maybe there's a newer one that she's referencing and I'm just retarded. But let's see, what was the second one again? Kill Bill, 2003. So she's talking about things from over 20 years ago, right? Like, I think you instantly lose right there. If your only two references are from things from 2 decades ago, you're not with the culture and you don't have a finger on the pulse of it. She continues though, "You respond by calling me a feminist in rewriting history to suggest Ken is the protagonist. To rewrite history. You are, okay, first of all, let's start this. Let's go slow here. You respond by calling me a feminist," which she is. She is. "I don't understand why she doesn't want this tag. And maybe it's because there's more money to be had and she values relationships with people on the right. To me, it's just a big grift. Like, this is somebody, all of this rhetoric is from somebody who is clearly a feminist. It's like if someone's playing dumb with me right now. It's a good sign to know that someone's a feminist if they're playing stupid with you. And rewriting history to suggest Ken is the protagonist, despite the writer of the film obviously suggesting Margot is in multiple interviews. That's crazy. Okay. So this is, again, outside of the paradigm of the fact that things can be ironically inside of a movie, right? There's plenty of instances of this where a director sets out to make a movie, this and this, but in turn, a part that they found out that they thought was actually bad turns out to be like the best part of the movie, or turns out to be ironically like people enjoy this part. I think one of those movies would be like The Room, right? Like, it just is like, it was sent out to be one thing, and then now it's this iconic thing because it's such a bad movie. Not inside the story, but the way that it played out. But to sit here and suggest that the quartering is rewriting history, to even suggest that Ken is the protagonist, again, is someone who clearly was outside the conversations and wasn't, probably not seeing the conversations that were happening about people who were the resurgence with Ken, and all of the based Patrick Bateman edits that I was seeing with Ken, especially because there's multiple quips that he has talking about, like, we need to go say this and this to these men, right? Like, we need to go say this and this about the other Kens. We need to go do this and this. I just don't understand it. I find it to be ignorant, if anything. But we'll give her the benefit of the doubt. But she goes on, How is this any different than 2016 social justice warriors getting facts wrong, calling you a Nazi instead of making an argument, and then suggesting actually J.R.R. Tolkien wrote Gandalf to be gay? That is word vomit. It is someone who is just I wouldn't say seething, but is like frantically caught up in something that's just ignorant. And the quartering didn't even like push back that hard. He was just like, no, it's actually because of the feminists. Well, no, she actually got mad at his post. So she already did do the feminist thing, right? And so now she's mad that the quartering responded to her reacting poorly to his tweet. It doesn't get more female than that, truly. But it's different than the 2016 social justice warriors getting facts wrong, because he's not getting anything wrong. There is a large plurality of people that viewed Ken as a protagonist. She just doesn't want to accept that as fact. Calling anybody a Nazi, well, you call someone a Nazi, that has just lost its meaning, because they would call anybody that. They'd call a mega supporter that. They'd call, you could say that like Harrison Butker, for example. Harrison Butker says that he thinks that women should be in homes and their natural vocation is actually to be wife and mothers. Well, now he's a Nazi. It means nothing anymore. If she is clearly so supportive of these female protagonist roles, I don't understand why the harsh reaction to being called a feminist. It doesn't make any sense. But then to make an argument and suggest that actually J.R.R. Tolkien wrote Gandalf to be gay is so far and outside of the realm of what they're even talking about that it would probably irritate me that somebody would put forth such a ridiculous logical fallacy that I'm surprised that the quartering didn't go nuclear on her. But he responded, saying, all this time arguing on Twitter about how people are totally not sick of strong female leads could have been spent paying to see Furiosa, which you did do. And then he has a smiley face. And it just, could you finish your argument any better than that? Right? Like, she's out here shilling for this movie that she's not even probably watched. It's crazy to me, man. Crazy. Then that's the bulk of the tiffs. I'm sure they've gone back and forth at each other since then. Here, let me just go and see if I can't see right now. I'll try. I have to actually like refresh my Twitter every time I go too far zoomed in. It's actually kind of annoying. But let's see this, okay? Let's see if the quartering has any more, because he would have been the one to respond, maybe. No, or Lawrence Southern would have been. But if so, he probably would have already quoted it by now, because he's on it. And then they started going back and forth with Nuance Bro, which I thought was kind of dumb. Let's actually go look at this, because I did see this bit here. And this is only one of the earlier ones that we had already covered, okay? So this is saying, actually, Ken was a protagonist. Nuance Bro comes in, and he responds. Let me scroll down a bit so you can see it. He says, bro, your bestie, Sydney, is more feminist than Lauren. Which, to be fair, I don't know where that came from, but I agree with that. She is. She says, it's legit so bizarre you're trying to involve me in this, LMAO. He says, y'all are business partners. Really not crazy for someone to mention you in relation to his behavior in a business capacity. Which I'm not even sure. I didn't even know if they were business partners still. I didn't think that they were. But possibly, and maybe they are. But she responds, Sydney Watson since, and again, I cannot stand Sydney Watson, dude. She's so feminist. That clip we watched of Nick Fuentes, and he's just like getting the droning of her going on and on about being politically correct. That's her. But she says, yeah, that's not what's happening here. This is not related to the public at all. You're trying to use me as ammunition against Jeremy while simultaneously comparing me to and pitting me against Lauren, who also happens to be my friend. I'm not involved in this. Stop trying to involve me. And better yet, stop involving yourself. You and I aren't friends. We never talk. You don't know anything about me, what I think, or my ideas outside what you piece together from things I tweet and say in videos. So kindly leave me out of whatever the F it is you're trying to. It's just like, dude, don't sit there and utter the most feminist bullshit on the planet and then not expect people who are also in the political arena to call you out on it and make comparisons to also extremely insufferable feminists. If you don't want called out, stop being in the public sphere and stop making your opinions known. Otherwise, dude, you can play the game like the rest of us do, which is you're in public and you're not going to sit here and no amount of you bitching about someone who tagged you in the comments because they noticed a similar parallel between your feminist nature and the feminist nature of someone else, it don't mean nothing, dude. And the fact is, the fact that they're getting mad, like, it's just so feminist, bro. That's why women shouldn't be in anything. Why are you even involved? And look how the conversation is immediately not about female protagonists in movies anymore. It's about the sensibilities of the women who are talking about it. And now we're immediately out of the conversation, off on a tangent, worried about what someone's feelings are. I can't stand it, dude. And it's like, go back to the kitchen, dude. Well, you and I aren't friends. We never talk. Like, okay, dude, what's that mean? I'm still gonna sit here and like, imagine if I commented on Sydney and she said, we're not friends. Why are you talking to me? You posted on X? Am I retarded? Am I in a movie? You know, it's just dumb. It's kind of ignorant stuff. So put a pin on that. I want to move off of this because I don't want to get too irritated by the nature of the feminist stuff here. So we're going to talk about this little viral clip. It's about 1.5 minutes long of Stu Peters. It's powerful, and I liked it a lot. And so if you're not familiar with Stu Peters, I'll go to that first. If you're not familiar with, is it going to work? I hope so. There we go. So if you're not familiar with Stu Peters, his bio says post-apocalyptic warlord, but he does run his own show. He's like a, what do you call that? Like an alt-right, possibly adjacent to where Alex Jones is at. He would be slotted along where you would find people like Jake Shields, Nick Fuentes. He's in that arena of the right wing, per se. So, to get to his clip, though, I believe he was on Fresh and Fit where this clip happened. Go ahead and pause it here. And actually, what I need to do first, I need to connect my headphones. Make sure that everything's going to be okay. I don't want to screw anything up either when I do this. Let's see here. I'll make sure nothing gets messed up. Make sure the microphone's still okay. Should be playing the sound here. Okay, forgive me. I should have had these in before I even started this. I apologize for taking your time. Okay, and I just want to check on the desktop audio as soon as I play this. Again, in the chat, leave a comment, chat something if the audio is off or it's too low, too loud, anything. Just let me know. If it's okay, even just let me know it's all right. Let me switch it over here too. I appreciate that, Kikli, my sage words. I apologize because you probably caught in on the portion where I just started cussing a bunch. I apologize for that. I'm trying to do my best to not cuss as much as possible. But okay, let's go to this here. This is from Fresh and Fit, and it's a Stu Peters bit about voting.
I don't see any other way out of this other than extreme accountability. And by that, what I mean is I'll be very specific.
Thank you very much, Kukla. I appreciate that. And I'm glad to see you in here too. It's awesome. Let's start this over though. I think I need to adjust the chat here a little bit. I want to make it more transparent than what it is. How do I do this? Let me try something. Oh, that made it worse. Okay, we'll keep it like this. It's a trial run. It's my first time doing it. Okay.
I don't see any other way out of this other than extreme accountability. And by that, what I mean is I'll be very specific. Because I don't want people to be like, well, what does he mean by that? Like, no, let me not mince words. I'll look into the camera and say this. Extreme accountability means putting on trial the people that have committed these crimes against humanity, and upon a guilty conviction, they are executed on a national stage. I don't care how. I don't care how. Firing squad, guillotine.
The fact that Myron's like, all right. I don't think he really knew how to take that. I'm not sure if they're still streaming to YouTube or not. I know that he's demonetized on YouTube. I'm not sure if he's how that's working for him. Let's move this up here so everybody can see these chats. Yeah.
Hang from a length of rope until dead, shot in the brain, don't care how. They're out here killing our kids. And I just don't see any other way because we have exhausted every other means of peaceful or political solution. We're not going to vote our way out of tyranny. We're not going to vote our way out of psychopath, a bioweapon release and forcing on the American people we're not going to vote our way out of anything because voting is fake. It's fucking fake. So
voting is fake. It's effing fake. I agree with him. I'm somebody who I'm not really too sure what's going to happen in November come 2024. I don't have the best feeling about it, although it's been kind of a dead year, essentially because there was really only 2 candidates for the majority of it. We all kind of knew Nikki Haley wasn't going to do anything. It really was just kind of dependent upon whether Vivek Ramaswamy was going to do something. But he went from like, what was it? I think Vivek Ramaswamy went from like 0% to 8%, which is like a huge increase. It's one of the things we haven't seen anybody like that since Ross Perot. I think those are the comparisons on him. But he's right. I agree here with Stu Peters. I'm not sure how we walk all of these things back and get to some sense of normal without removing this animosity, right? And so you know it. You can probably have everyday conversations when you go to work and with people who you're with, you know, day in and day out, who are just like, it's them, they, those people, them versus us. I don't think you can walk any of that back without having some legitimately some serious consequences to inflicting the vaccine upon as many people as they did, along with all the other instances of like the mandating. And then again, it's, you got to think of too, like the massive loss of life that they possibly won't be obvious about. But I think he's right here. I really don't see another form to at least kind of sterilize the environment and try to walk the culture to a more timid position, because I think most people even have this feeling that we're just kind of waiting until things get violent, and I don't want that to be the case. You know, I clearly, obviously, especially not when I want to start a family, but for obvious reasons of just like, you know, people just don't want to have violence incurred upon them. You don't want to get your house taken from you. You don't want robbed. You don't want attacked. But this is going to be an idea I don't think people are going to get behind. I don't think that it's there yet. I don't think the culture is there yet. I think there's still a lot of people who are of the indifferent kind, the people who probably would take like the Ian stance, which is, why don't we just pardon everybody, Ian Crossland? And I find it irresponsible. At the least, I find it irresponsible. If you know and you could investigate and you have the possibility of finding information on a possible Anthony Fauci, Dr. Anthony Fauci, that there was a serious loss of life and you can correlate these things to these people, I think it'd be irresponsible to not have those investigations, especially not just for the retribution aspect, but in the name of justice. That is just, it should be done. I don't think you can't slide a limp hand in there and say, well, we'll just get over it, guys. It's not going to work like that. You're not going to be able to quell a lot of the awful cultural environment, the toxicity nature, how animosity everybody is. Everybody's just at each other's throats all the time. I don't think you can get any of that without some kind of, like, hate to say it this way, but it's like, you know, some kind of pressure release like that. But I do agree with what Stu Peters said here too. A viral moment. It's going to be catching the rounds too. This is obviously why you have Stu Peters, who doesn't make many waves on social media a lot, because he does not care what people think about what he says, which is why he has to have his own show, which is why he's kind of limited in that aspect. But he has over 600,000 followers, so he's grinding, he's pushing, he's doing well. You know, he even got into a tiff with Alex Jones over the JQ and other in that realm, because I believe he was on InfoWars too. But to move off of this, though, move off of voting, we have RFK explaining to Tim why he thinks the CIA assassinated JFK. Now, this is about a 5-minute clip, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yeah, 5.5 minutes. Tim does not look good here. He looks a little chubby. But let's go ahead and watch this, man. And then again, anybody who's in the chat, if this volume is off or it sounds too low or too quiet or too loud, even let me know. I will adjust accordingly. I'll try my best to adjust accordingly.
We had.
Wow, that was way too loud. I apologize. I blew even my eardrums out.
We were honored to have Dr. Ron Paul on our show last year. He said the CIA killed your uncle. Do you think so?
What is that? What is that dead man look? Hold on. That's his reaction. He looks tired, dude. I have to imagine he was just having a long day.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Why?
Why do I think that?
No. Like, why did they? Why would? I mean,
And again, I hate to pause it again real quickly, but to understand, they got about an hour into this debate, because I only got about an hour into it. I got around to this point, didn't hear this part yet. They were sort of arguing back and forth because Tim was trying to move the conversation into a narrative about the culture war issues. He refused. He was like, Tim, this is, I respect you, man, but you're I can't even talk like RFK. You're gonna lose credibility. I can't do it like that. But he was saying like Tim Pool's gonna lose credibility if he doesn't shy away from the culture war and focus on the more important things, which is just like, dude, again, I'm somebody who views the culture as being what's more important. And thank you, Abigail. I'm glad it sounds good. Again, these videos might all be different sounds too. So if at any point something sounds off, you'd let me know. I'm not afraid to change something. But again, let's continue.
I think.
I mean, it's pretty well documented.
Yeah. I just mean to open up the conversation.
What I would say is, if you have, there's 100 books about my uncle's assassination. The best book, which is an extraordinary distillation of probably 1 million pages of documents, and also the many confessions of people who were involved in the murder. I mean, the CIA is still blocking the release of documents, not only in the murder but in the cover-up. But the best book is a book called The Unspeakable by James Douglas, and it's a riveting book, but it's also he's a scholar, and it's an extraordinarily well-documented history. And are you asking why they killed him?
Yeah.
The group that killed him was a group from the Miami station, and they were angry at him, beginning with his failure to overthrow.
So he didn't even miss a beat. He didn't even miss a beat at all. He was just like, oh yeah, they did. Yep, and this is who I think it was.
Castro. And they were angry with him because he was pulling out of Vietnam. He had signed an executive order bringing all troops home from Vietnam by the beginning of 1965.
This was related to Operation Northwoods?
No, Operation Northwoods was another thing that, this is all part of his battle with his military-industrial complex. But after the Bay of Pigs, he fired the head of the CIA, Allen Dulles. But Allen Dulles did not stop being involved with the governance of the agency after that. And then when my uncle was killed, Allen Dulles got himself put on the Warren Commission. And in fact, he was running the Warren Commission and steered all the Warren Commission investigation away from the CIA. And then either way, this isn't a conspiracy theory. This is when Congress investigated, the House Select Committee on Assassinations investigated my uncle's death 10 years later. They said, yeah, it was a conspiracy. And most of the people, all but the senior counsel at that time, Bob Blakey, all the junior counsels believed that it was the CIA, and particularly this group, E. Howard Hunt, David Atlee Phillips, Bill Harvey, who ran the Miami station, and David Morales, and then operating with mobsters were Sam Giancana, who were from the Chicago outfit, Santos Traficante, who ran the Tampa. And
I seriously, listen, his voice is so bad. It's so bad. I'm struggling to go from word to word to understand what he's saying. If anything, it just speaks to the nature of you can only be a politician if you've literally had your hands, dealing until you're 80 years old. That's crazy to me, man. I wish it wasn't this way. I wish it was different.
And family, and then Carlos Marcello, who ran Dallas and New Orleans, and my father prosecuted all of them when my uncle was president. They all had casinos in Havana, and they were working hand in hand with the CIA on the assassination of Castro. So they were people who were, and they were partners with the CIA in trying to murder Castro. And part of this, the program is called Alpha 66.
Was that in any way related to the story of the film Casino? You're familiar, where the crooked mobsters in Chicago.
A lot of the mobsters, the mobster who was the liaison between between the CIA and Bill Harvey was the guy who was directing this program, and the mob who got the three families involved. His name was Johnny Roselli, and when he was subpoenaed.
Hold on. I believe Johnny Roselli is the Israeli guy. I want to actually fact check this real quick. I'm positive that's who he's talking about. Yeah. Right? Because this is the guy who... Okay, no. I'm thinking of somebody differently. Okay. John Roselli, mobster, dude. He got a nice pick right there, man. Nice mobbing pick with the Italian mob, the mafia, I mean. Okay, back to him.
Subpoenaed by the committee, by the House Select Assassination Committee. He was subpoenaed once he testified, but then they brought summons him back to testify. And he was murdered on his way to testify, and he was cut up into small pieces and then put in a 55-gallon oil drum and was found floating 2 days later in Biscayne Bay in Miami.
That would be one of the worst ways to go. Now, I know that the majority of the time it's because, like, that they put him in the barrel of acid afterwards. But to imagine that you would just get, like, shoved into a small space and to never get out is, like, one of the worst things I can even imagine. I'm somebody who's extremely claustrophobic. And just, like, the thought of that is, like, I need to go outside. I need a breath of fresh air.
And at the same time, Sam Giancana, who was the head of the very, very powerful mobster who my father had prosecuted, and who I actually sat in a hearing room when I was 5 years old and watched him take the fifth, I think 127 times, when my father was interrogating about a month before my uncle became president. My father was ridiculing him and saying, "You're laughing like a little girl, you're giggling like a little girl." So they hated each other.
Wow.
And Giancana, who was,
Based.
also involved in the assassination, he was also subpoenaed by the committee, and he was murdered just before he was supposed to appear. He was executed in his basement.
But the good news is that the CIA has since been reformed, and these bad actors,
Absolutely.
Yeah, they were held accountable for,
You can trust the government now.
That's good. Like, the good news is the CIA is different now, right? Like, no. No. I mean, it's kind of cool that he's so frank about it, right? You would expect if he was more of an establishment plant that he would kind of be a little bit more timid to walk around that situation. Or maybe it's by the matter just proxy of the fact that the CIA has just been exposed so bad, there's no kind of coming back from that. So they were like, go ahead and say it. Maybe I'll get you some votes. Who knows, though? But still, it's a crazy situation. And to think that, like, in my lifetime, we were going to find out these things about JFK when it was all like whispers when I was growing up, it's just mind-blowing to me. Because back then, when I'm growing up, you would think like, oh, if this was ever found out, like, people would go crazy, right? Nope. To be fair, I don't think many people are all tuned into how serious and the nature of what's been proven to be true is. But even at that, it's like the ones who do know are like, they're not rioting or revolting. It's just like, okay, well, we all kind of knew that was happening. So, what are we going to do? Like, it's just crazy to me, man. That's like, what? Okay, to make a hard jump into another story though, right here, because I'm going to be banging these out rapid fire, is a father had a tweet about MrBeast. And I actually wanted to watch one of his recent videos because I wanted to actually kind of like verify what this guy was talking about. But here's what he says. Let me make this bigger too. You guys can't read that. Okay. He says his son stopped watching MrBeast after his co-host Chris Tyson who is the train guy who betrayed his wife and kids, came out as trans. Yesterday, one of their friends put it on, and they all shut it down after seeing Chris in a bikini, which again, gross. They ran and told me how disgusting it all was, and good, I'm glad. I am glad, showing that at least there's some hope. Like the young kids are able to move around it and see what's going on, at least in with what they can understand. He goes on to say, MrBeast isn't safe for you kids. Stop acting like it is. The editing is designed to hypnotize and confuse. The whole thing is borderline schizophrenic. Save your kids' minds. Influence them before others hypnotize them. Now, I'm not even sure who this is. Whoever PDB might be. I don't think he's anything big. Okay, he's big. He's a lot bigger than I thought he was. So it's not just some random account that went viral, but it has 500,000 views. So it's picking up traction. So, Michael Cernovich did quote this. I'll see if I can go find it. But essentially his quote tweet on this was the fact that, yeah, there are like every video you see when it's like TikTok, a lot of the short form content is like this, but even like, the 10-minute videos on YouTube are being like this, where everything's a jump cut. There's no time in between, like all of the spaces and breathing is edited out of everything. So you get the non-stop rapid fire dopamine hits, and algorithmically, it's training the creators to do this. Because if a creator adds in the jump cuts and they add in all the crazy effects and edits, and those videos do better than the ones that don't and are just much more simple and standard, well then you're training the creator essentially to keep doing it because they are incentivized to do so. I don't think we really have an honest to God, like strong idea of what these effects are, because like I haven't seen much research being pointing out to that, but maybe there is a sect of like iPad babies that are being kind of studied and followed with the way that they behave and their brains are developing, but it's going to take a long time to understand what these effects are. I mean, not a long time, but it's still, these effects are going to take place and we're going to have to deal with the consequences. So it's another one of these things where we enjoy it at first, then we realize it's got an effect, but it's going to be a delayed thing where it's going to be a few years from now. We realize like, okay, what's really wrong about it? And here's how we can, not make videos like this, or at least not have the same effect and change things back to the norm and correct things. Because we are seeing a lot of things with neurological diseases, such as the rise of like, Tourette's and ticking and, simple like cognitive behavioral issues like that I think a lot of people are essentially pinning the way that the dopamine and the short form content operates with the jump cuts and all of this too. I know with the Tourette's in particular on TikTok, it was because girls were watching a lot of videos of girls who had tics and then were then developing them. I think in those cases, that's just like an issue of bad brain train. Like the brain is training itself to do things that you shouldn't be. It's not like these people actually have Tourette's, but they've now seen it multiple times. They've developed a memory muscle kind of association to it. And so that's unfortunate, but I think some of those things can actually be like, trained back and moved out of. But when it comes to the harsher effects with like, the mass depression, and when we look at things like suicide epidemics, we're gonna be curious like how much of this can be added up to the fact that all media consumption, no matter how like, simple it may be. I mean, you even watch like one of Redeemed Zoomer's videos on Christianity. He's all over the place with stickers and arrows and things. He's got a good message, but it's still using the same medium to get the message across. And so my idea is probably that it does affect. I can't imagine it has that much of an effect on people. I'm somebody who doesn't watch too much TikTok, especially not the short form content. I do watch a lot of YouTube videos, so I'm familiar with the jump cuts and the changing angles and things. I haven't noticed that that's had an effect on me, but maybe it's one of those things where I even can't, it's just one of those subconscious things. I'm subconsciously watching a video for 8 seconds where I would have only watched it for 2 had it been edited a different way. So who's to say, right? It's, I can have the awareness of when like I'm doom scrolling, but I don't have like the in tune awareness of like, okay, this is making my dopamine levels drop. It's like, nobody knows that really. You can only kind of sentimentally kind of feel that like, oh, I'm feeling down. Maybe I should stop doing that. You don't really have a good pinpoint or measure or metric on it. And just to prove the point though, I would like to actually show you this video because I believe I found the one that he was talking about on here. So if I go right to YouTube, I go to my history here, make it easier to find this because I watched a couple of these this morning just to try to figure out what video it might have been, because I assumed it had been a recent one, which I believe is this one. Yes, it is. And again, I apologize if the volume is off.
Next, most of the
I'm gonna try to turn this down a bit, because if it's blaring in my ears, it's a good chance it's blaring on
year
the audio.
looks like this. But it's going to look like this.
Oh,
No
actually,
joke,
yeah.
this island is so cold right now that the lake around it is actually frozen solid. Which means
Yeah, and I don't even really hear him either. But it's not her. I saw him somewhere. Chris is on this one, I believe. Yeah, it was right here. I think this is the only time I'd even seen him. So this is him right here, you know, dressed up like, you know, and is doing his LARP and he's wanting to be a female. I didn't think it was that bad. But maybe it's like later in this video, he's like in a bikini, it makes him uncomfortable. But it is true. Like if MrBeast isn't going to distance himself from these kinds of influences, then it really only speaks to the fact that like he's just simply pushing it himself. Now maybe he's not doing it as hard. He's not pushing it nearly as much. But come on, bro. It's like you're still like he's still there. It's still influencing to some degree. He's still going to, if he's still around you, you're still going to keep getting that negative flack or the pushback, the blowback. And I just am like, you know, MrBeast is somebody who's got like, you know, FU money. And to think that like he wouldn't take a stance on something like that, it's just kind of wild to me, right? Because you see somebody like Elon Musk. I'm not saying, you know, MrBeast is Elon Musk by any means. I'm just saying once people reach this kind of stature, don't you think like they would inevitably get to a point where they're like, I'm not doing that and I don't care what you say. And maybe I'm just wired differently, but I would expect, you know, he would have just simply been like, you know, get this out of here, dude. You know, like Chris, like I don't enjoy what you're doing with your family and stuff. And he was like, you know, I'm not going to sit here and blast you on social. I'm not going to make videos about you, man. He was like, but I don't want you to be around this stuff. I don't want you to be around me. Our main audience is kids. He's like, we're good. We're good. If you're going to be with us, you're good. You know, give him some kind of severance package or whatever and be like, be out of there. But he didn't. And he's still here and he's still kind of getting pushed along. And to me, it's kind of really it only makes MrBeast look poor. It's not like anybody really cares of like the reputation of Chris Tyson. He already destroyed his own family's life by doing all this stuff. So maybe I'm in the minority there, but just a warning though to people who do watch MrBeast videos and things like that, because he is somebody who does all of these crazy tricks on the mediums, right? Like, I mean, let's just watch a couple seconds of this. Like cut. I didn't cut there. Okay. So zoom in, cut, flash. But again, he can do all these things. So he's got such a really good production. Some of the stuff is actually cool. And it's not really these things, but it's like the nonstop jump cuts. It's probably a lot more here in the beginning. Yeah, zoom out, quick cut, flashy, but that's cool production, right? These aren't really any of the jump cuts. Those are the jump cuts. Those like right there, those quick succession ones right there that are flashing that you will see all the time on short form TikToks, where somebody will say one sentence, but before the sentence is even finished, you've seen 5 different images. Like things like that, that's like the rapid fire. And I imagine that probably does have a probably fluttering effect on dopamine when you're being presented with that many sensory or stimuli in rapid succession, no matter what it may possibly be. So moving off of this though, we're going to move away from the MrBeast stuff. Again, rapid fire, going to another subject here, which is the Patrick Bet-David and Tucker Carlson had a sit down. I did not watch this in its entirety. I would like to. I would also like to watch the Dave Smith one. But I saw this clip and I thought it was great. It was brilliant from Tucker, especially talking to somebody who I do believe Patrick Bet-David is a dual citizen. And matter of fact, I want to go ahead and fact check this. Let me pull it off of this screen again. Let me fact check this, dude. Is Patrick Bet-David a dual citizen? Well, that was probably the wrong question to ask. Is PBD a dual citizen? Because I would like to know this before we watch this. I guess I'm not going to get an answer like that. I think he is, right? Like, I'm assuming he is. Maybe he's not, though. No, I imagine the answer is somewhere in the longer form of the podcast. But let's watch this clip here. So again, this is Tucker Carlson with Patrick Bet-David talking about dual citizenship. Now, clearly you can probably have an idea. Tucker wants to completely do away with dual citizenship, which I am also a proponent of. Even if it was a temporary measure, I think we need to we're going to have to do hard measures because Simply closing the border this late into letting this many people into the country is a step that's just too weak and too soft, and it's not going to help a lot. You got to take as many hard measures as possible to really stop the flow and stop the bleeding. So I agree with Tucker's position here, but let's watch the clip. And again, everybody in chat, let me know if the volume is off. I'm watching it. It looks yellow on my screen, but if it's bad, I will change it.
But I think about America the way that I think about, you know, a ship that's leaking. It's like, one thing I know is I'm staying on it, whether it, you know, I'll ride it to the bottom or not, but I'm here.
So, okay, so at what capacity are you willing to contribute for it not to leak? Is it at any capacity, or is it limited capacity that you're willing to personally
Well, I don't have
contribute?
any options. And by the way, if I were in charge, you know, if I were some sort of benign monarch, hopefully benign, you know, no dual passports in my country. Sorry. I mean, because that really is the measure of commitment. You know, are you all in or not? Like, do you have options? You know, have you burned the boats, as they say? And I think you should be required to burn the boats. No, you can't go back. What, you're here. And once you are, this is what marriage is. This is why you treat your wife better than you treat your girlfriend, because you're married to her and it's very hard to get out of, and you've got children together. And so in a normal marriage, the person's like, well, one thing I know I'm not doing is divorcing. So
Doesn't that go without saying, though? If you have dual citizenship or you are a proponent of it, wouldn't that by itself imply someone who's not a dual citizen to question just how loyal you may be? Someone who has single or solo citizenship, I'm a citizen of one country. I think it begs the question that that should be the normal framing of it. If you're a dual citizen, it should be like, okay, so you're just less American than me. You're actually half American. You're half American and you're half wherever that other citizenship you got from is. At least that's the way I view it.
So I'm going to actually try, I'm going to suck it up and try. And that works. Sucking it up and trying works. Right. I feel the same way about my country. I'm not going anywhere. I don't have another passport. I wouldn't get another passport. How many people do I know with dual passports? Like 1 million? And they tend to be the richest people and the people who've gotten the most from the country, who've really benefited from our systems, which they've then destroyed. And I think that should be illegal. Like, pick a country and pick a military. No, you can't serve in a foreign military.
I think that I don't agree making it illegal, right? Because what does it happen with all of the people currently who have dual citizenship? I think you put a stop in it. And maybe he's not saying that. I don't want to put words in Tucker Carlson's mouth. But the way he kind of says it is like, what, we're just going to start rounding up all the people who have dual citizenship? Like, no way, we can't do that. I think it'd be better to just put a stop on it and be like, you can no longer apply. Like, we don't accept dual citizenship here. You know, I think that's a better way to go about it, and just and put it on hold, or just eliminate the program entirely until we can reinstitute it and we're in a better place to accept legal immigration, which I don't even think is a thought right now, right? Like, especially with the level of immigration we've got. The commonly referred to figure is 10 million people in the last few years. I've seen leaks and seen other reports that speak to a much higher and bigger number. I'm more keen to believe it is the higher, bigger number. I've seen reports of over 30 million, which if you think that's literally like 10% increase of our population. If we had 330 million in 2020, if you add 30 million, I mean, that's a 10% population increase. That's devastating to this and destabilizing too. From everything from economics to just normal everyday culture to every aspect of life gets frayed like that, because you're adding, like, now instead of having 10 people, there's 11. In every situation there's now an added person. It changes the dynamics of things. But let's continue.
What? And no, we're not going to pay you to serve in a foreign. I don't care what the country. I don't care if it's England or Sweden, where my ancestors came from. I don't care if it's Burkina Faso, where yours came from, or Iran, where yours came from. It's like, no. And you should be all in. I just, the whole idea of it, it's like an Airbnb. They're using, the country's like a fucking Airbnb to them. And it's not an Airbnb. It's my house. That's how I feel.
Okay, so let's stay on that. When
He's right though. That's how it feels when you see everybody's doing all this traveling. It tends to be like the richest people, and it's like in a flaunting format. And I'm curious because I don't think PVD appreciates this, because I'm assuming that he is a dual citizen, and I could be entirely wrong. I tried to fact check right beforehand. I am positive that he is a dual citizen, and I'm not sure where though.
When
Sorry.
No, this is very helpful.
Serving in a foreign military.
When you talking about
any military? I mean,
I saw
any.
That, but I know what
military.
you're talking about, because I read the notes on if you're able to serve in Israel, it's going to count as.
Oh, you hate
service,
Israel?
All this stuff.
I do not hate it. I like Israel.
How does that? But what is a lot? I don't.
It always goes back to Israel, dude. Why?
I don't even want to get sidetracked.
hate
How is that
Israel.
even the logic to say like you serve in another military counts as the same as?
I don't care if it's, my name is Carlson.
But no, but
I'm
what's
Swedish. If you serve in the Swedish military, get out.
What's the
We're
argument?
not Sweden.
But
I mean, what?
how is their argument to us though? How are they saying
There's
that?
no argument. There's just like, you hate this or that. No, I don't hate anybody. And actually, in the case of that specific country, I've been there a number of times. I could describe it in detail because it's one of my favorite places in the world. I'm just saying, I do.
It's funny because that's what he's saying. If you say out loud, you're like, no, my preference is to be just around, I want my country to just be people filled with my people and my citizens from my country. They're like, whoa. You hate everyone else? And it's like, dude, you can't simply by saying that my in-group preference and my in-group bias means I hate people out of the group. It just means I have a pro-bias for the people in my group. And they try to frame it and attach those things as if they're not mutually exclusive, but they literally are.
Not just the ancient city that defines the country, in my opinion, not the modern Miami knockoff that everyone loves, but the real Jerusalem. It's unbelievable. And the people and the food, and like, I just like it. So I'm not going to fall for that. You hate it. No, I don't hate it. I just love my country. And I think you can only have one country at a time. I don't believe in polygamy either. You got one wife. And by the way, if you have two wives, I know people who are polygamous, and I, with respect, you're not all in on any one wife. So it's like, well, she's acting crazy. See ya. And you go deal with the other wife, right?
Yeah.
And your commitment is less.
I'll be honest. One could only wish it was that easy. I'm sure if you get one mad, they all team up against you. I imagine that's the framing of a polygamy relationship, especially in 2024.
When it's diffuse, when you've got more than one, you cannot serve two masters.
Mm-hmm.
I believe I'm
Amen.
quoting someone in that. And it's just true. It's factually true.
Amen. You cannot serve two masters. I'm cool with it. I'm cool with the idea. Especially if you and I'm not sure because we didn't really get to see what Patrick Bet-David response was to this, but it seemed like he was pushing back or at least wanting to understand why Tucker was so forthcoming with this argument. Because again, I am assuming and I'm positive that PBD is of dual citizenship. He is a dual citizen somewhere, and I just can't think of where it's at. I know he's Assyrian. He's ethnically Assyrian. So I would imagine that comes from somewhere else in the Middle East. And I could be entirely wrong, but I'm positive that's America. The case. I want that. Okay, we're doing another hard segue, right? So now we're going to do a hard segue into a couple of funny things. Kind of break the serious nature of this a little bit. I have Lizzo reacting to the South Park episode of her that they made a reference to her, which is funny. It's only about 2 minutes long. There's a dad and son moment that I saw that was hilarious. And then there is another moment about nurses. So 3 little viral clips. They're pretty short. We're going to hit them in rapid succession. Let me flip it over here. All right. So first one we have Lizzo reacting to the South Park clip. Okay. So South Park did an episode recently. I believe it's the most recent episode. And they talked ish about Lizzo. And in Ozempic is what the framing of this is. That's where this is coming from. Let's go ahead and watch.
Here we go.
I was telling you, Sheila, these new drugs are pretty amazing. I was feeling so ashamed of myself, watching Randy go out and exercise all the time and not eating as much. But I just don't have the same kind of willpower he has.
Which of the drugs are you on, Sharon? Ozempic, Mounjaro?
Oh no, I talked to my doctor. He said insurance would only pay for those if I had diabetes.
But if you can't afford them, then how are you managing your weight?
Don't you know, Sheila? Now there's a whole new obesity drug for those of us who can't afford Ozempic and Mounjaro. I've controlled all my cravings to be thinner with Lizzo.
It's Lizzo. FDA-approved Lizzo makes you feel good about your weight, and it costs 90% less than Ozempic.
I will say, it's sad to me too. Forgive me. She's doing the fat girl selfie thing. She's holding the phone like literally as close as she can to her face because she's so big that any other exposed skin will let everyone else know, like, oh, that's a big girl. Like, dang, dude. And you know what I'm talking about. You go to Instagram and you see these photos, and I'm not trying to make fat girls feel bad, but if you are fat, you should probably go to the gym. And they'll take these selfies, man. It's like they're like the camera's like on their face, like can't get it much closer. And it's this attempt to do this LARP as if they're skinny, and it's kind of catfishy, but I understand why girls do it. But it's just funny that she's doing it for this video about her being fat.
I've lowered my standards and my expectations.
It's Lizzo. In case studies, 70% of patients on Lizzo no longer cared how much they weighed.
I don't give two shits.
Lizzo helps you eat everything you want and keep physical activity to a minimum. Some patients report constipation while listening to Lizzo. Stop listening to Lizzo if you experience suicidal thoughts.
While
Serious
listening
side
to
effects may
Lizzo?
include pancreatitis, hypothermia,
What the
and
fucking
literally
album?
bleeding out your ears. Are you living with concerns of obesity?
Ask about the power of not giving a fuck with Lizzo.
That's crazy.
Okay. It wasn't as like as harsh as it could have been, but that was pretty good, especially with all the Ozempic stuff going on right now. I thought that was, which I think there's been like how many actors now have been getting attacked for their rapid weight loss, and some of them just like look like their skin sunken in, like ugh, you can't even see their faces, dude. It's a deal with the devil, man. Some of these people just like they'll do anything for $1, dude. They'll do anything for $1, dude. They'll turn their back on their own families, and it's unfortunate. Okay, we're gonna go to the next one though. Next one here is from Malcolm Flex on X. It's a dad and a son moment, and so people haven't seen this one. That Lizzo one was a bit more viral than this. This one I thought was hilarious. And it could be entirely staged. I didn't do any do fact checking on it, or hard fact checking, I should say. So take it with a grain of salt, but I thought it was a funny moment, even if it is fake.
Dad, guess what? What? I put a chip clip on my wiener. Okay. No, leave me. Oh no, sadly I believe you. Well, it hurts. I'm sure it does. Take it off. No, you gotta see this first.
Why didn't he say take it off initially? Why does he just sigh? If I heard my son saying that, I'd be running over there, dude. Get this shit off of you.
I'm definitely not looking at that, so no. Dad, can you please bring me another chip clip? I want to try out too. I'm not giving you another chip clip to put on your...
See, he couldn't even hold in his laughter. Even the guy, that was what made me think it was probably staged. Especially the way the camera's angled as well, because like, who has a camera just sitting in their home like that? Funny though. It is a funny moment. And Malcolm X said, if you haven't dealt with this, then you're either childless or you have calculating super genius psychopaths for kids. It's like, well, I'm ready to experience that here soon, very shortly. I'm sure my wife is too. And then let's jump to this next one here, right? This is nurses. This is TikTok nurses, man. We know they haven't seen these in a while. But this one was like aggressive, dude. I was just like, what is it? I guess it's less funny. This one is not even really funny. This one's just like, what? Like, what are they, like, what? What's happening? I'll play it and you'll watch. If you can probably even read this right here. I'm gonna get copyright struck. Ask him if we can see it. I don't know if you caught that. That was a quick one. It says, ask if you could see it. No, we can't. The doc will be here any minute. Ask if we can see the patient has morning wood. We have to stay professional. Like, what is this? These are your TikTok nurses. F it, I'll be fast. Like, maybe they did it just in tongue in cheek because they knew it would pop off for them. People would be screaming about it. But like, I feel like there's someone like right there. like, I feel like that guy's not going to appreciate the way that this went down. Especially because he has loved ones, and I'm sure his loved ones aren't going to appreciate that. But again, everything you see on the internet is probably fake, and so who knows how real this is? It could be they just picked up two mixed and matched scrubs and made a video, and that could be just like a plastic body you do CPR on. It could be not even real at all. So who knows? Take that with a grain of salt. Hey, let's move on because we got a declaration of memes. Okay, we're gonna hit these rapid fire, and I thought this one was good too because this is the last of the clips. Yep. Last of the clips, I'm going to go to Ross Ulbricht and the Trump with the LP. But I thought this was pretty good. This is also not funny. It's very poignant is the best way to put this. Very poignant, and it's about taxes. I mean, who doesn't love taxes, dude?
I get up at 4:45 in the morning and I don't see a sign of the government anywhere. Every single day for 8.5 hours, I exchange my time for labor. I don't see the government anywhere, except for on Thursdays. Thursdays, I get my paycheck. That's when the government shows up. That's when they feel they are entitled to split half of the currency I made for trading my time, my skills, my labor. This goes on throughout the year. where I'm responsible to keep records of all of this. At the end of the year, it's my responsibility to prepare all that documentation for them to review it. They then determine if their cut was large enough. If I don't meet their schedule, I face fines, fees, or the threat of being locked up in one of their cells. I guess some people call this taxation, but it doesn't meet my definition. To me, that sounds a lot more like fraud, embezzlement, and slavery. I get up.
It is important to have that framing. That's the framing that you should have every time you think about taxes, every time you think about the government and the fact that they're supposed to be the ones working for you. And then to think that you have to do all this extra work, and the way he frames it too it's so on point. I wish we had more people who would take a harder stance against the way taxes are done in this country than we do currently. And we even saw there was that moment in Texas where a bunch of guys were banding together saying they weren't going to pay their tax refunds, or they weren't even going to file them this year. Who knows what happened with that? But people are in fear because when you get 87,000 IRS agents added on to the department who are also then trained with firearms, it kind of puts this like go ahead and try it kind of vibe to the American people, but from the government being like, yeah, we'll see what you do. Hire 90,000 boys, man. Get them 9mm, load them up, send them out. And they ain't gonna come. They ain't gonna be coming to, little places and stuff too. They'll go for like the middle class people who may have made like a mistake and didn't realize it, and then you're down $124,000 because you missed this or this or this and that, and then bang. And then someone who does a hard work and honest job like this is now probably staring down the barrel of a prison sentence. And like, that's just, we can't continue like this. It's going to break down. So moving off of this though, I wanted to get to another big ticket item, which was the Trump vowing to pardon Ross Ulbricht, who is the founder of Silk Road. I found it odd that he went to Ross Ulbricht. I found it odd that the LP had free Ross signs. I found it odd that Julian Assange wasn't the main spokesperson, especially from the Libertarian Party, because as a lot of people put it, they really have no electoral weight. So they are in a position where they can be super ideological. It's not like they're going to win. It's not like they're going to get any, libertarians, into the presidency. So they're in a position, and Iliad put this really well on Tim Pool's show, that they're in the position where they can take the most ideological stances without having any of the pragmatic backing behind it, because it's not like they're going to be tested anytime soon. So then why wouldn't they make these huge claims about like pardoning Assange? Why wouldn't that be one of your huge asks, right? Or abolishing the Fed? Why aren't these the big asks? Why is the big viral moment about Ross Ulbricht? Now, to be fair, I think what happened to him was wrong also. But when you look at the impact of the founder of the Silk Road, who invented essentially a network that existed on the deep web, versus someone who did literal hardcore reporting and is facing every consequence known to man for it, I don't even think it matches up. So we'll go to one of these clips here, which is, who is Ross Ulbricht, right? So I actually have this little video prepared for it. It's about 4.5 minutes long, and it explains who exactly Ross Ulbricht is. So let's go ahead and watch this. This is from, I don't know who this account is. This is Freya. I'm assuming this is who made this video. Freya Tarte. When she says, I've never heard of Ross Ulbricht until I watched the Trump rally tonight. I'll move my chat out of the way. Put it in a better spot. I'll put it like right in the middle. Until she watched the Trump rally tonight and saw people holding free Ross signs. The weaponized justice system is as bad as I thought it was. I might join the libertarians someday. So maybe she didn't make this video and she grabbed it from somebody, but there's no from account. So I'm assuming that she made it herself or ripped it from somebody. So it's unfortunate if I'm watching somebody's video without giving him credit. But let's go ahead and watch this because it explains who he is.
This is the greatest violation.
Again, anything wrong with the audio, please let me know. Comment in the chat, anything. Just let me know if it's too loud, too quiet, whatever.
Violation of the 8th Amendment that I'm aware of in the United States today.
It's time for the American people to wake up.
The price we're asking him to pay is too high. It is too high.
This says, over a year later, the allegations were absent from his charges at trial. They were never proven in court or ruled on by a jury. They were officially dismissed in 2018.
I think there was a lot in that case that smelled rotten to me, including the initial supposed allegations of murder for hire, but which the government didn't actually charge in the end.
Why are you supportive of a guy that tried to kill you? And I immediately snapped back and I said, how do you know that he tried to have me killed? You're just going by what the government tells you. I don't believe it.
When you read his history, you find...
If you didn't read that on the bottom, it said he was a murder for hire victim. That's who this guy was. Only alleged murder for hire victim ever identified. And I'm assuming that was because they used the Silk Road to order this hit.
I immediately snapped back and I said, how do you know that he tried to have me killed? You're just going by what the government tells you. I don't believe it.
When you read his history, you find out that he's not a vicious criminal and he has 2 life sentences and never committed a violent crime.
After this, I have a totally different perspective. I don't believe everything I read anymore. I don't believe everything I see on TV anymore or on the news.
And in a shocking move, the judge actually went above and beyond what the prosecutors were even asking for and gave him a life sentence.
Double life sentence seems awfully severe for what he did.
And instead of being sentenced to 10 years in prison, like the site's most voluminous drug dealer or another digital pusher who only got 17 months, Ross Ulbricht was sentenced to 2 life sentences plus 40 years with no possibility.
That's insane. I knew that he was in for a long time. I didn't know they gave him double life sentences. I think that's kind of ridiculous. Like, to give a double life sentence, I think for only like 1 charge. I mean, he probably had more than 1 charge, but still, though, that is kind of egregious on its face.
For parole. Ain't that a kick in the nutlets?
Remind him of what Ross Ulbricht, who did much less with Silk Road, is serving 2 life sentences plus 40 years.
When you look at the crazy sentence there and what actually happened, there's a lot of questions about Ross Ulbricht and whether that was a miscarriage of justice.
He's just one more casualty of our drug war. And the drug war and cyber, I would say, are 2 of the most misprosecuted, misunderstood, and contentious areas of law that we face in America today. And Ross is smack in the middle of those 2.
They basically landed him with all of the illegal things that were sold on his platform. If they applied that to Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg would never see the light of day again.
Facebook, the world's largest social media company, only began tracking drug postings on its platform last year. And within 6 months, the firm identified 1.5 million posts selling drugs. That's what they admitted to removing. Put that in perspective, that's 100 times more postings than the notorious dark website.
Okay, but you got to think, though, too. Like, to even get on the Silk Road and use that, you had to know, like, which browser to use. You had to, like, use the Onion browser or, like, Torrent or something like that. So, obviously, I don't even think it's even that shocking that there's more Facebook deals or more drug deals happening on Facebook. Because people are just dumb. Just idiots. They'll send messages on Facebook. It's not hard to just, like, to search, you know, OZ, enter, and then through a database, and then you go through people's messages and you see someone go like, yeah, I'll take 2 OZ. It's like, well, I'm going to have a good idea of what this guy's asking for. So to me, it's like, those numbers don't really like, it's not a shocker that there's a lot more people on Facebook doing it, but it is a shocker that the guy who had way less happening to him is the one serving the double life sentence. And the guy who wasn't even tracking the data about the drug stuff until recently is out and stealing everybody's data and like and rubs it in your face. That's kind of wild, huh?
The Silk Road ever carried.
I think it is an unfair standard that we use for him for running a platform.
The guy has been condemned to rot in prison for setting up a website.
He is a guy who has served, or will have served, certainly by October of this year, over 10 years in prison.
He's the very definition of scared straight. This guy is not going to reoffend.
No American is safer because Ross Ulbricht is in jail for life.
And they wanted to make an example out of somebody.
If I find that Ross Ulbricht was punished as an example, then I will give him clemency.
No, I think that he also deserves a commutation of sentence.
He doesn't claim that he was innocent. He knows now that it was a crime. He's asking for clemency. He's asking for his sentence to be commuted.
Life in the federal system means life. It's not like the state system where you get a life sentence and you can get out.
I hope one day we can get together, and you know what? I bet you we'll become friends.
It's what he can contribute to society on a social level, on a personal level, on a community level, if he's no longer behind these bars.
You know, I'm sure he's done enough time. Get him out.
Okay, well, at this point, dude, like, if he gets out, like, he's going to the darkest place on the planet and, like, probably never going to try to be in public again. I don't think he's going to have any kind of, like, social positive for letting him out. At this point, it's just, like, doing him justice and being like, hey, like, we're not going to let the government do blatantly egregious things outside the law. You know, like, take that stance, but it's, like, social positive. And again, this video is obviously biased, but I don't know much about Ross Ulbricht, so who am I to say, like, oh, he wasn't intending for all these things to happen, and now he's just as scared straight because they went so hard with the punishment on him.
Wow.
Set the man free. He has been imprisoned, beaten down by the system, and has forfeited his fortune to the Fed.
If he isn't granted clemency, he will die in a cage. He won't get out. He won't get out.
Makes sense. It's a lot of emotional argument there too, but it's, if you got to think about it too, if it's clear that they went outside of their way to do something that's not allotted to them in terms of like the sentencing and how harsh they were about it, then it's clear, like, commute the sentence and let him out. Now, if he does reoffend, then it's like right back in there, dude. Like, especially because I'm not a libertarian, right? Like, I'm not somebody who's like, yeah, we should have free drug websites. Like, I don't care. I don't think we should. I think all those things are a net negative to the society. But I think he was well within his realm to set something up like that, especially because it's like there wasn't anything entirely, I believe, unlawful about what he had done in the initial setup, but possibly there was. I don't like the emotional argument to free him just because, like, you know, he didn't do anything that bad. Like, that's not the argument. The argument is the government's insane and they went over the line, and for that reason he should have the sentence commuted and we give him a second chance instead of allowing the government to get away with, once again, a ridiculous overreach of power. And that's where it's at with that. So we're going to go to the Brooklyn Dad, because this is some of the Trump's reception at the LP, because Ross Ulbricht was a big talking point at the LP. Now, Donald Trump had vowed to pardon Ross Ulbricht. It's one of the biggest, I think it might be the biggest thing that's come out of the LP since then, outside of the fact that RFK received an abysmal low amount of votes for the nomination for the LP as well. And this is Brooklyn Dad, somebody I cannot stand, a huge leftist account. I'll put it on screen here. Ridiculous leftist account. He's one of those ones that constantly pushes like fake stuff. He's in that class of the Krasensteins. Every time I see a tweet of theirs, it's just like, I just sigh. I'm like, ugh, and I move on. Just like they're pushing the same establishment narrative stuff. But this is Trump getting booed by libertarians for taking a position. So let's take a listen.
That's nice. Only if you want to win. Only if you want to win. Maybe you don't want to win. Maybe you don't want to win. Thank you, D-Roy. Thank you. No, only do that if you want to win. If you want to lose, don't do that.
He's talking about vote for me.
Keep getting your 3% every 4 years.
He's so good at it too. He doesn't care. That's fire. But he's right though. He's totally right. I mean, what are you going to do? A vote but for anything but Trump is essentially a vote for the establishment. There's no really any other way around it. I wish it was different. You know, I'm not Trump's biggest supporter, but it's like, it's clear. It's clear. It's like one of these is way better than the rest of them. And following this, we have Dave Smith giving some remarks before Trump took the stage. So Dave Smith kind of prepped everybody for the appearance for Trump. And again, this goes back to the fact that, you know, Dave Smith being a Mises Caucus libertarian, there's a big difference between the Mises Caucus libertarians and the drug hippie libertarians. And he's going to speak a little bit to that too. So let's go ahead and give this a listen as well.
You know what? Okay, listen. There's broadly speaking, I think, two groups of people here. Okay? No, but I'm serious. There are members of the Libertarian Party and there are people who came here to support Donald Trump. Listen, I have a message for both of you individually. I hear you. To the members of the Libertarian Party, which I am also one. Guys.
You see this? There's an ivermectin ad. If I move the chat, there's an ivermectin ad right there. A Z-Pack and more? What even is that? Dude, come on. Sometimes people counterculture too hard sometimes. I mean, maybe if you need to get some parasites out of you.
Guys, listen.
It is
Here's my
effective for
message to the libertarians here. The former president of the United States of America and the current frontrunner to be the next president is here to talk to you. We are not a bunch of college leftist sissies. We believe in free speech. So be respectful.
Yep.
I'm not telling you you have to agree with him, and I'm not telling you you have to cheer for him. But we're not having like Jordan Peterson at Berkeley event here. And the message we're sending to the world is not that we can't handle ideas that we disagree with.
I like it.
We are libertarians. We are constantly surrounded by ideas that we disagree with. We're in Washington, D.C., for God's sake. And here's my message to the Donald Trump supporters who are here. You came to the Libertarian Party National Convention, and we're libertarians around these parts. So let me tell you a little bit about what we believe in case you're not sure. Here's what we believe. Donald Trump, as President of the United States of America, was framed for treason by his own deep state.
Fire, dude.
And those people belong in jail.
Amen, dude. Lock them up.
It is an absolute crime
Have to.
against our nation that the intelligence agencies that supposedly work for the president would dare frame a presidential candidate. But they crossed a whole nother line when they framed the sitting commander-in-chief. And not one of them has paid for that. And that is unacceptable.
For those of you who are here when we were talking about the Stu Peters stuff, like, it sounds like he's echoing a lot of the same sentiments. Like, we are ready to give the justice to the people who inflicted the last 4 years upon us. So Dave Smith isn't echoing as profane or as out forthright, I should say, as Stu Peters was. But he's still echoing the fact that we must make these people pay. Go straight to jail. And I agree 100%.
Around these parts, we are truly America first. We believe in no foreign adventurism. We are strict non-interventionists. The proxy wars of choice following 20 years of disastrous terror wars in Ukraine and in Israel are absolutely inexcusable, and America should have no part of either of them. We are $34 trillion in debt.
Yeah. It's pretty excessive. A lot of dollars. End the war. End the war. There's a lot of parallels here, right? With a lot of the libertarians and the people who are on the right. So it makes sense why they're seemingly like united, and why it makes sense why Donald Trump would take the time to go out and talk to these guys. Clearly the reception right after this, when he goes up and speak, when he got booed, was they clearly didn't care what Dave Smith had to say. Because I'm assuming that the reason why he prefaced these comments was because he spoke before Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was probably the big ticket guy who went last or close to last. I think it's a good sign that we are seeing the majority of the people who are at least politically active and the activists, because we're seeing it from the pundits, But to see it being echoed, these sentiments here in the LP for the retributive act and ensuring justice is to be had for all of the ridiculous stuff going on in the last 4 years, which I'll refrain from naming explicitly so YouTube does not feel a type of way about it. I think the sentiment's there, and I don't think you can get rid of it. You know, I think maybe on a long enough time scale, people just kind of forget about it. The generations go on and on, but I think then that's a miscarriage of justice by allowing people to just deal with the consequences and never truly getting to the bottom of what actually happened. Because I think it would heal a lot, right? If we actually did get to the bottom of what happened in the last 4 years, and we kind of have a good and objective understanding instead of all of this nonstop misinformation, false information, this and this, bad faith actor here, bad faith, you know, and then getting lied to nonstop, screenshots being from things that are 18 years ago. Like, I think it's necessary, and I think it would be really, really, you know, beneficial to the American people. So another hard segue, we'll move off of the Trump at the LP. There wasn't really much with it. The one thing I will say is that Tim Pool is going to be on tomorrow. I believe it's at 8 p.m. Tim Pool and Donald Trump will be on the live stream. Now, I think it's a pre-record and it's not actually going to be live because they already put the picture out of him and Donald Trump sitting across from each other. So I am thinking I might possibly react to that live. I'm not sure yet. I might just go beforehand to do a regular stream. But just so you are aware, everyone else is aware, Donald Trump and Tim Pool tomorrow. And I'm really curious to hear what he has to say about Julian Assange, because Tim Pool put in an Instagram post. One of the questions he will be asking Donald Trump is, will you pardon Assange? And what's your process with that? And I'm curious to hear, because that's what I truly want to know. Because I think Julian Assange is well and deserving to be pardoned. So moving on from there, we're going to go to the Epstein Calendar that was released by the Wall Street Journal. I've not seen many people talking about this. It's from the Illuminati bot. It could potentially be old as well, but I just caught the clip from, again, Illuminati bot here on X. Go ahead and go to the other screen here. So I believe it's Jesse Waters. That's who is talking about it. It's another 4.5 minute clip, but apparently this private calendar was either finally released or was discovered by the Wall Street Journal, and they have published some of it. And I have not watched it yet. So I'm watching in real time. I'm not sure what information will be in here. Move myself to a better position. Also, yes, Kukli, yeah, prayers for Donnie. I have no idea what's going on with Donnie. I know he's been dealing with some personal issues. I'm not going to delve into him. I do know a little bit. I'm not going to expose him or dox or anything right now. But do say a prayer for him. I've tried to be in contact with him. I sent him a message the other day. He's not responded. So it's probably been about 2 weeks since I've talked to him. So yeah, prayers out for Donnie, because we really miss him here on the show. I'd love to have our home libertarian come back. So let's go ahead and take a listen.
Pedophile Jeffrey Epstein was arrested. So why do we still know nothing about him? Well, we're finding out tonight some answers. The Wall Street Journal just got its hands on Jeffrey Epstein's private calendar. And it was a lot more suspicious than Brett Kavanaugh's. Epstein was meeting with the kind of people you'd think would steer clear of a convicted pedophile. Jeffrey Epstein was meeting with one of Barack Obama's top lawyers, Catherine Rumler. She met with Epstein dozens of times. Epstein even tried to set up Obama's lawyer to work for Bill Gates. How is Jeffrey Epstein a fixer between Obama's lawyer and Bill Gates? Epstein was also meeting with Joe Biden's CIA director. He wasn't CIA director at the time. He was Barack Obama's deputy secretary of state. William Burns was working for John Kerry at the State Department and meeting with Jeffrey Epstein, a known pedophile. And then Burns becomes CIA director. Today's director of the CIA went to Epstein's Manhattan townhouse where Epstein had sex with underage girls and, where he filmed other men having sex with underage girls. And William Burns went there and was then promoted to the director of the CIA. Yes. Now, I wonder if the future CIA director saw the portrait of Bill Clinton in a blue dress hanging in Epstein's parlor room.
What a picture, though, too. It's a super bizarre painting. I see I got a chat in here. It didn't appear on my page. I'll have to check what the reason being. Quickly saying, City sounds like a clucking hen. She would have definitely been part of the clique in the high school days of Mean Girls' sectionality. Yeah, I mean, that's how all the rhetoric comes across, at least to me. And what's insane too is like, and this is an aside from away from this. It's ridiculous because I don't understand why they dislike the feminist take, right? When people are like, "Hey, you're a feminist," they take offense to it, and to me, it just doesn't make any sense because it's like it's clear to everyone else you are espousing feminist ideals. It just it's like ridiculous to me. But again, to continue.
A few years later, Epstein was arrested and then hung himself in a jail cell while security cameras just happened to not be working and the replacement guards just happened to fall asleep. And 2 years later, Biden just happens to pick William Burns to run the CIA. So what are we supposed to think? It's never been more clear. Epstein was an intelligence asset. Not only was he working for the CIA, Israeli intelligence, maybe even Russia intelligence. So was the American government allowing an asset to traffic and molest teenage girls all over the world for intelligence? Were we allowing Epstein to commit crimes against children for blackmail material? Well, we asked the CIA director, William Burns, why were you meeting with a convicted pedophile at his disgusting townhouse? And the CIA director said this: the director did not know anything about him, other than that he was introduced as an expert in the financial services sector and offered general advice on transition to the private sector. They had no relationship.
It's like, you think, yeah, we're going to buy that. Yeah, you guys didn't have a relationship, but we have this calendar that shows that you guys were meeting up with each other. It's just it's so in your face too. It's just mocking you at this point.
So Obama's State Department official couldn't have asked anybody else in the entire country for help with a job in finance? He could have called any CEO, any hedge fund manager, any banking director.
Could have called me.
But he meets with Jeffrey Epstein, a guy that doesn't even really have a real business, a guy that doesn't even have a website, a guy that, as far as we know, only had one client, the CEO of Victoria's Secret. Huh. That doesn't add up.
It's just a funny quip right there. He didn't go with Epstein, who didn't have a website. What kind of take is that? I get it, but it's hilarious.
Bernsey. And this explains the sweetheart deal back in 2006. This explains the prison cell cover-up. And this explains why all the Epstein tapes went missing. Everything Epstein recorded, everything. Missing. Every property he owned. But when he died, the Fed seized all the tapes, and the only person who's ever been arrested since then was the Madam, Maxwell.
Jeffrey Epstein found me almost immediately. He knew exactly where I was, the location. And I knew then that I was being filmed. I was being watched 24/7. There were cameras all over the island.
So the CIA has all the sex tapes, and they've been blackmailing like crazy. This is the blackmail jackpot. Hours of video starring the world's most important people in Epstein Island, in the Manhattan townhouse, and the Palm Beach estate, and the New Mexico ranch. Bill Clinton was good pals with Jeffrey. Flew on the...
Yeah, what is it, like 27 times, 37 times he flew on the Lolita Express or whatever it is, getting massages. And how many girls is that now that's come out and said like these things were happening to them? But I never see any of those clips from like the local news. One of the ones that I can think of that's pretty popular that talks about this with the Obamas is the Ali Carter girl. Like I see plenty of videos about Ali Carter making claims that like she was trafficked by the Obamas.
The Lolita Express 26 times, went to his private island. So when someone does something that doesn't make any sense, maybe it's because they don't want to be doing what they're doing. Maybe it's because someone's telling them what to do and threatening to release the tapes if they don't.
Yep. Sounds about right. Especially when you see all these like the rituals per se of people coming in and like all the Hollywood actors and celebrities doing things that you would have been like, wait, what? Why are they doing that now? And it's really visible in the music industry because you'll see someone, put out an album or two albums, they get hyped, they pick it up, and then it's like they get industrialized. They get to a certain point where they make it. And the next thing you know, they're pushing this, they're pushing Satanism, they're pushing blood in their songs. They got blood violence. It's just like, where's this come from, dude? You know, even Taylor Swift is doing stuff like that. And it's like, where was any of these kind of influences at all? And it was like, yeah, maybe Jesse Waters is right. Maybe they're just, they're in fear of being blackmailed with some kind of egregious thing that would do a lot more harm to them than taking a staunch position in truth. And again, I don't understand how you can even end up in these situations where you can be taped doing something like this. Like, I understand there's like a lot of like, you know, with roofies and things like that you can do, and you know, and with drugs, and by that I can understand those things. But even at that, it would be like, you can't even really be ashamed of it, because it's like, you know, you weren't even conscious. But to do it willingly and then be like, oh, now I have to live in fear of something I did willingly on tape, is like, what kind of person are you? It's kind of disgusting to me. And wanted to move into one final thing before I go ahead and call the stream. This last little subject here is Michael Malice predicting on how Hilary Clinton could enter the 2024 race. And I thought it was interesting. They pulled this up here from, no, this is not the one I wanted to watch. Yeah, this is the one with Free Ross, but we don't want to watch that. We're going to watch the one that has, oh, come on. Did I miss it? Should have bookmarked it. Oh, forgive me. Now I gotta look through here real quick. Should have bookmarked it. I guess I didn't though. Well, that's annoying. Okay, let me search it up real quick on X. I'm sure I can find it in like 2 seconds. Let me flip it over here. You can watch me do what I'm doing. Should be able to find it rather quickly. Actually, it's just one L. Michael Malice Hillary. Right here. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna bookmark it so I can save it. Okay, this is what I wanted to watch because I thought this was interesting. Because I'm someone who respects Michael Malice's opinion. He's very, very like in the know, and he's very, you know, I don't agree with a lot of his positions that he takes, but he's someone who's like pretty objective, and I can understand where they're coming from for the most part. So I respect it. Make the chat a little bit smaller. I'm gonna actually put it up here so it's out of the way. Nah, that's probably better on the bottom. I'll get it figured out. I want to get the background on the chat to be a bit more darker. That way it's got a, you know, a good bit more contrast to what we're seeing. Let's go ahead and play this.
I think shit's going to get crazy in a way we haven't seen before. Because if he's where he is in the polls now, Trump, where he's leading, which he never led at all in any poll in 2020, it was like one poll. He's leading in a lot of the polls. Things are going to get nuts. And one of the predictions I had is if they pull Biden, their plan B is going to be Hillary.
Oh my God.
And she would probably win.
Really?
Hold on. She got millions more votes the last time. Now,
I've said this before. I don't think the plan B is Hillary. My prediction is that it's Taylor Swift. But let's listen.
that doesn't count in terms of electoral college. But if I'm starting out with a faster time than you know what I mean? And I just got to switch a few thousand in a few states. That's a really strong opening position. She doesn't have to defend Biden. She gets Newsom as VP, so he gets the suburban white woman vote. She would go on that debate stage, go, 8 years ago, you said I'd be in jail. You're the one with the mugshot. Right? And even you laughed. See? It's funny.
I just find her so wholly unlikable. I don't know one thing or another about Trump. I just thought 2016 to 2020, there was so much fucking debate and everything was such a thing. I kind of enjoy the relative peace, even though I don't think Biden's a good president. Hillary, though, I just find so... Biden, corpse or not, relatively sweet old guy, he seems. So as an uninformed guy who doesn't even really vote, to be honest with you, I would be, if I had to vote, I'd be like, all right, I guess just give me the fucking quiet corpse.
Give me the quiet corpse. Well, that's ridiculous, it's a thing to say. But to be fair, though, I think a lot has changed since the 2016 election. Like, I think Hillary has in fact made her name even more poisoned. Like, there's even been more poison in the well in her name. I can't possibly imagine they would try it. But he's right with the fact that Hillary did win the popular vote during the 2016 election. So who am I to honestly truly say? It's not like we really have polling numbers about Hillary. I know that there are some places that do like that do bet props. And I'm sure Hillary's on there somewhere, but to the degree in which I think it's a significant impact or someone we should be looking at to fear, I don't think so. I honestly think they would go with the Gavin Newsom before they would go with the Hillary Clinton, purely just because of the youth aspect. And it would be the one thing. It'd be finally they're getting someone young into office. Now, I'm not sure what Gavin Newsom's age is, but I know he's definitely younger than Trump and Joe Biden. But I can see that being a thing where if they can find one element in which they can be, objectively better than everyone in, it would be going the super youth route in which you can do that both with Taylor Swift and Gavin Newsom. And I think the way that politics sit now, people really aren't even voting for policy. It's just like you have a lot of low IQ voters that are in there anyways. And so if you're flooding the market with low IQ voters and they don't watch the news anyways, then I don't think there should be much to fear if you were to even slot in a Taylor Swift, because people don't even really take you seriously for the most part anyways. So why not try to get as much of like the artificial vote and the young vote as you possibly can? But I could be wrong, but that's just my prediction and my estimation.
Sure. The guy who's going to rile everyone up. But Hillary, I'm not voting.
Can they even swap somebody in at this time?
Well, if he dies.
Oh, so you're saying
incapacitated, but they could just sit him down. Look, what happened in
mentally unfit.
In 2020,
to have your name on the ballot.
Sure,
I think you had to announce by.
Yeah, I'll explain what happened in 2020.
In other words, just shut up.
No, I'm not saying that.
It's really rude.
I'm not saying that. I'm just implying it. So, in 2020, there was something called Super Tuesday, which is a bunch of primaries in the same day. Yeah. And Klobuchar and Buttigieg got the phone call because Bernie Sanders was leading in every state. They go, it's Biden. They just quit. They're like, oh yeah, we endorse Biden, and Biden swept it the next day. So I'm sure someone give Biden the call, being like, dude, you're losing to Trump. It's a wrap, because he's a function of the party. He's a party hacker since the 70s.
So what do you think, man? What do you think? I'm curious for anybody who's in listening. Who do you think? Who do you think if they were to slot in anybody, right? If they were to slot in literally any other person, like who would you imagine it would be? Because I'm thinking Taylor Swift. I'm going the deep pass. But my argument, because I even talked about this with Donnie a while ago when we did the podcast. I'm doing the podcast right now. We did an episode. Can't remember which one it is. I essentially had argued that they didn't need to campaign because, people would say, well, Joe Biden's not campaigning. Nobody was really campaigning on the Democratic side. It was really just a race between, Vivek, Nikki Haley, and Trump. And I might be forgetting somebody else too. Either way, it's irrelevant. It proves the point. So we haven't really had much debating going on here recently because it's been an early just between two people. So it's not like you've had a campaign. But my argument, though, back to that, was Taylor Swift essentially campaigned throughout the NFL season. I think that they did a bunch to put her face out there. And now that we're a bit more removed away from the football season, that idea feels a bit more out there. But I think when we, around the Super Bowl time, I think if I were to say that, people would have been like, oh, I can see it. Okay. Especially with just how politically agendaed and biased she is with a lot of the things that she puts on. I mean, she can't go too far without taking a feminist position. I mean, she even called out, Tennessee Christians as Tennessee Christians aren't the real Christians. Like, that's not my Christianity, because they took a stance against abortion. So she does a lot of things that are very subversive, but she clearly has a huge base and is someone that I can see even pulling votes away from Trump because she's country, right? Like, and so the people who listen to her catalog of music are people who typically come from that realm of yeehaw, my guitar. And so it's viable. But again, hard to tell without any polling numbers. I mean, everybody clearly knows how popular Taylor Swift is. She's a polarizing figure for sure. Hugely popular with the ladies and then not so much with the men. But she's got plenty of male fans. I mean, the white knights of the world. And so I don't know. I would imagine, especially because there already are more women than men in this country, that we already do have to battle against a slight female bias, I should say. Especially because I believe the numbers are 52% female, 48% male. So we're already kind of at a bit of a disadvantage. And so that plays out heavily when you're looking at the macro when it comes to voting, right? That 2% actually does mean quite a bit when you're looking at the margins, specifically when you're trying to get votes from the Electoral College. That was all I really had for today. I made the outline really quickly in the morning. I was going to get burnt through a few things. I might possibly stream a bit later, but if I do that, I'm just going to do a gaming casual stream. People can come in and chat and do whatever. Again, the Discord is in the description of all these videos and all the streams. So for people who want a chance to actually come into the Discord, the community, people who want to send me stuff that I can like react to on stream or things that I might have missed that I'm not seeing, that's what the Discord is there for. I encourage people to come in and dump topics and content and videos in there that want me to talk about. or if you're a creator yourself and you want to be in contact and you want to get a chance to come on the show and do a podcast with me, I would enjoy that. Obviously would like to do a little bit of vetting process beforehand and would hope that you have, at least a good bit of time you can contribute to the show. I don't want to bring somebody on who only wants to talk for like 10 minutes or get scared or something like that, but just so everybody knows, I leave those options out there for people. Again, the What in the World collab is coming. Again, that'll be on Saturday. It's to be decided. It'll be anywhere from 8 to 9 to 10 p.m. What in the World? Look him up. He's a content creator, someone who we're going to be collabing with. I'm making the outline for us. I'm in charge of that. So I'll probably put together a few topics throughout the week that we'll discuss. Although I will say this, me and him agree a lot more on issues and topics than I did with Donnie. So it could end up turning out to be a bit of confirmation bias. Not sure though. I imagine I'm probably, because I'm still like dissident right, I'm probably going to take the more hardcore Christian stance compared to anything he might take. But that's not to say he's not Christian. What in the world is Christian? I'm just saying I don't think people are generally prepared for how hard I go in the Christian nationalist position, because that's really where I'm moving to. I know I've said it before, but it kind of gave me some thoughts, and I wanted to kind of actually like do some internal thinking, like what really do I think? What really do I want these things? And I do. I think as it sits right now, I'm somewhere between a Christian nationalist and just pure dissident right, like far right is what you can say. I guess given this political spectrum, I'm somebody who wants to ban pornography. I'm somebody who would get behind eliminating, OnlyFans across the board, like things like that libertarians won't take those stances on. And especially with the current political spectrum as it sits now, you have a lot of people who are on the right simply by proxy. And that just means because they don't want to be on the left, doesn't mean that they're on the right. It just means they're over here currently because they don't want to be associated with the hugely ridiculous progressive nature and the woke ideology that's far left. So maybe we'll find a bit of things to disagree upon. I would hope that we do. I mean, and if we do agree on everything, that's great. But just put it out there, because there is a good chance we end up running the another weekly show, and I'll end up just starring on his, or maybe do like a back and forth, or vice versa. Not really too sure how it's gonna look. On the call, I actually literally showed him how to set up the chat and a bunch of these things like this, so we can get his live stream looking clean. I might even possibly host it here too, so who knows? He's got the way bigger platform, so I'd prefer to do it there and help build my channel. At least that's just the way my thought process is growing. Especially because like I'm stuck at like 700 subscribers. I've been here for like a year. I don't know if it's because I'm algorithmically limited, or if because I have one too many strikes. I don't even think I have a strike. I think I just have like a warning. I'm never going to repeal that though. I don't even care. You're not going to make me take some stupid quiz because I know I was good. I know I was right. You just didn't want me to talk about it. Besides, they changed your policies about the video since then too. It just kind of sucks. I have the warning there, but I do know early on, you take a strike or a warning or guideline strike of something of that nature, it does hamper your account heavily. It does damage to your account. I believe it's almost like a 90-day window where it will essentially clamp and make sure your impressions don't go outside of a specific range. And after I found that out way after the fact, but once I was like, oh dude, it's like, no wonder I made like 20 videos in a row after I was doing well and blowing up, that it was just like that. It's gone. I can't make any content. I can't hit the ground running with anything. So yeah, I will leave you with that. Message me wherever you can on X or whatever, if you do want to be a part of the Discord, if you can't find it in the description. But I would love to start that, dude, to have people, sending me stuff in that they want me to talk about, or kind of direct me into a more community grassroots effort, because I want it to be all this content to be entertaining to the people who follow me and who want to watch the live. And I got the few viewers who are in here right now watching the whole time. So I want it to be, you guys are pushing me forward in the direction that you want to be seeing, right? Like I'm just a vessel, I'm the vessel for the people essentially. Like I clearly have my own thoughts and feelings and stuff too, but I'm a hammer. Like I am using everything in my power, right? Like I'm trying to use my voice and everything that God gave me to push hard against all these things. So let me be the vessel for you people who wish to look at certain things or want to go in different directions, or even if you want to debate me or think I'm wrong about something, like I would love that. That's why the Discord is there. We have a few members now. What in the World's even in there? Donnie's in there. And so I just encourage you, if I would like you guys to get more involved, especially because I don't want to keep bringing, just from my dome to YouTube, which I'm confident in, but it would make me feel better if, I was getting constant advice from you guys in the community, like what you wanted me to do, not tell me what to do, but things where you would be like, hey, if you checked into this, or hey, you should watch this video. You haven't seen this. I don't think you've seen this. Things like that, where it's like now we're kind of organizing together, unifying, and then from there, if the community is all grouping on similar things, we'll begin to become a bit more niche in what we're covering. And yeah, don't feel free to comment on anything. Like, I'm pretty easy to get along with. I will argue if I disagree with you. So like, I mean, obviously, but there's nothing else I really wanted to bring attention to. Again, if I do stream again tonight, it'll just be a gaming stream. I'll do it off of this channel. I'll keep the chat and everything going. I'm gonna probably try to fix the chat right here. I want to make this a little bit more not transparent, but that background, I would like it to be a bit more grayed out so there's more contrast. Because when we were watching some of those clips earlier in the Fox News stuff, it was like impossible to see like those bottom ones, and I had to keep moving it around. Which I know how to do. There's like I gotta mess with it and get back into the GitHub or whatever the extension is and change it up a bit. But again, I appreciate it greatly for you guys coming in. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe, follow me on X, YouTube, everywhere you can find me at, everywhere you want to be at, I guess I should say. I appreciate you all. God bless. Christ is King. Prayers up to Donnie. Enjoy your holiday tomorrow, guys. Because you know Monday's a holiday. Memorial Day, Labor Day. I always forget which one it is. But peace out. Take care. Have a good rest of your night, guys. And thank you all for coming in. This has been Offensively Accurate. Peace out, y'all.